I'm Tarot Oracle, and today we're finishing up the majors as far as tarot and symbology is concerned. We're down to the last 5 cards of the majors, and we're starting with the moon. Now, the moon represents the cycles of our lives, so it moves very fast, and it's a very type of psychic or inner feeling or inner well-being type of thing, and the moon represents that psychic connection that we have with all of life and with all of the things that we cannot see. So things that are going to be beyond ourselves or beyond the normal, average, everyday type fields. And we have the sort of the shredded sunlight sort of coming down, which is also water in this particular card here. And it sort of represents that the cycles and that intuition and everything else just sort of rains down on us when this particular card is here. Now, another thing you'll notice is you always have a hard shell being or a hard shell creature. Sometimes it's a crab, sometimes it's a lobster, sometimes it's a bunch of different things. And this represents the protection or the inner protection that we all have within our lives, that protection, that hard shell protection that we get as we use our intuition and as we make that journey up across into the mountains. Obviously, the mountains represent the obstacles as well, but as you can see, we have a path that's through the obstacles. So we have a pathway or sort of a helper that's through the obstacles or that's through the long journey, and that helper and that protection is this psychic ability that we all have, that we all can connect with. So again, the path represents that guidance or that type of journey that we're going to take as we go through there. So the two pillars are sort of the two towers that we have here, represent that type of stability or that type of surroundedness that we have. So we're not by ourselves. In other words, we have the support, and we have the support and the stability of the two towers. You see over here we have two prominent towers as well. So that represents that helper that we have, that help and guidance that we all have within there. So now we also have the refreshing renewal type rain or the renewal type sunlight that's coming down on us that gives us the refresher and again helps us along the path. So there's a lot of help that we get going along this particular path. Now we do have dogs as well, and the dogs are there as sort of a companion. And again, there's yet another thing that we have that's helping us along the path. We have the Fool. You had the dog that was in the Fool. You have the same type of feeling here. We have that companionship or that love, that devotion that we have from our pets, and we're going to get that companionship on our trip. So not only do we have the protection, but we have the companionship, we have the guidance, we have the support, the stability as well. So the transition from water to land also again represents a transition. So not only does the moon represent the sort of the transitional periods within our life, they have the full moon, the waxing moon, the waning moon, the half moon, etc., etc. So the new moon, all this stuff, we have these cycles that go through in our lives, and this is one of the cycles where we go from water or sort of that intuitive feel and putting that intuition into real life as we move into the grass and the land. So that is the moon. Next we have the sun, and the sun has quite a bit of symbology on it as well. We can start with the horse, and the horse represents that symbolizes the sort of that strength or that journey help, that person that's going to help us along, the person that's going to guide us on this particular journey. And that is going to be the being or the person or sort of the feeling that we have as the horse guides us on that particular sort of that desire or that movement that we have, and we have help in getting there. And the horse is white, representing that purity of heart and purity of soul. And again, we see the purity as well with the child in both of these, represents that new life or that new refreshness that we have within this journey as well. So the flag represents sort of this big thing coming about, that red that big beginning, that big flowing movement of the flag represents the big change that is happening, the big success that we're having. So all of this stuff is sort of wrapped around. We're on this journey. We're doing it fresh, or we sort of have this fresh attitude or this fresh reward for it. And this is a big deal. This is not a small journey. This is a very big deal, as you see from there. So the brick wall represents the distance between us and the past. So many bad things have been in the past that are not going to be looking at those anymore. Instead, we have the sunflowers, and the sunflowers are bright and beautiful and represent all that good stuff that we have coming about, and the rebirth that we have from this grandiose sun that sort of encompasses the entire card. So the sunflowers represent that big opening, that big transformation, or the big entry into something new, with that new freshness we have from the youth. We have the guidance, we have what we need to make that journey within thanks to the horse. And then this is a big deal. This is not a small journey. This is not a small thing. This is a big thing. And again, we have this wall separating us from the past. We could have had a really crappy past. It could have been terrible. We don't really know what's going on, but we know that the new beginning, this new opportunity, is a big deal, and we're going to have help with it. And the sun card is always a very positive card to have within any reading, especially at the end for a conclusion to any card reading. The sun is going to be a great thing to see. So that is the sun. And next we have judgment. So judgment is already sort of obvious here. We have a rebirth, right? We have a rebirth, a restart. So if things have been going terrible and everything is bad and nothing is good anymore, we have a conditional restart here. And the restart has quite a bit of symbolism. Number one is the angel's wings, which again gives us the protection from things. The angel himself is a protective angel, and the angel is blowing the horn, and it's announcing a rebirth. It's announcing something big has come. It's announcing some new big thing has occurred. So this is a very large, bright, big thing that has occurred and is coming along. So the clouds, again, represent the sort of not only the transition, but again, sort of that wrapping around of protection. So you have that wrapper of protection around the entire thing. And that's going to be always good news, because sometimes you just need that protection as you go on a new journey. So again, this is rebirth. So if everything has been going terrible and everything's wrong and all sorts of things have gone bad, now we have a rebirth. Now we have an opportunity to go and to make things better, or to do things like that. So in the background, obviously we have the mountains, and the mountains again represent challenges, meaning you may have a rebirth, or you may have a grandiose restart to everything. However, you kind of need to be aware that it's not going to be all sunshine and roses and puppies during that journey. We may have several obstacles, and the obstacles are going to come later because they're sort of way in the background, but it's not a smooth transition or a free ride. This is something that we're going to have to work for, and it's something that we may have to get some help with the challenges or something like that. But it is a restart, and it is an announcement of restart as well. And so the angel has awoken the second chance. The angel has awoken the freedom that we have to come out of the place that we were. So if we were in a terrible place, everything was going terrible, the querying is like, this is awful, everything in my life is bad, etc., etc. Well, you have an opportunity now to make it better. This is a restart or a rebirth within all of that stuff. So again, we have all of that. Now we're within water. The water represents the sort of the cleaning out of all of the old. So, sort of bathing within the water. The water is sort of cleaning us and getting all of the old stuff out, or getting all of the bad emotions that we had, maybe the bad luck that we've been having for years and years. All of that is getting washed away with the water. And obviously the nakedness sort of again represents that rebirth. So we don't need the baggage that we had before. We don't need the identity that we had before. We can move forward with a brand new version of ourselves and sort of let that rebirth sink in. And again, the announcement, the big flag, the announcement of everything that's coming. So it's a big deal. Judgment is a nice restart. If everything has been terrible, now we have an opportunity to make it not so terrible. So this is your opportunity. This is the Judgment card. And next we have the Hanged Man. First off, I want to sort of point out the cross with the legs. The cross with the legs sort of represents that decision making. It's time to make a decision. Do you want to go over here or do you want to go over there? So that's a decision that we have to make. That crossed legs, the legs aren't really obviously pointing any particular direction. They have two directions to go. We can go this way or we can go this way. So we have that feel or that announcement that we have a decision to be made, and that's one of the big things about the Hanged Man. The other obvious thing about the Hanged Man is the changing of perspective. So we're upside down. Things look different when you're upside down. So now we have a different perspective. It's time to take a different perspective on life, maybe a different perspective of the problem that you've been facing, and approach it with again, different perspective. So now we have the Enlightenment represented by the shining or the glow around the head. So the new perspective has given us enlightenment. It's not something that we look at this new perspective and go, oh, I have no idea. So the new perspective has given us enlightenment and announced a lot of different things about the perspective or the enlightenment, that we have choices now. And again, the choices are represented by the crossed legs. So obviously he's hanged, but and he's restricted. So it's not unlimited choices. In other words, you don't have an infinite amount of choices. You can create, you manifest anything that you want, etc., etc. This is more of a new perspective, a new enlightenment on everything that's been going on, and it's an opportunity to change your mind. There's an opportunity to make one of those different choices that we have represented by the crossed legs. So a very good card. It's always good to have a different perspective, and it's always a big deal to have this card within any type of reading that you have, especially since you have that enlightenment. That enlightenment is always going to be something great and something that we can sort of lean on and use to our advantage because it is there. So that is the Hanged Man. And the final card that we have today is the World. And the World has a lot of different interesting things. Now, first of all, we have the batons. Not one baton like we have on the Magician, for example, but now we have two batons. So that represents our authority, or that ability, our ability to have control. So this represents our control that we have. And again, we have the crossed legs representing sort of that choice. We have different choices, just like we did on the Hanged Man, but we have the authority now to make those choices or to make those ideas that we are looking for. So again, we have all sorts of symbolism around here. Let's look at this. So these are sort of a combination from previous cards. We have the bird, which represents rising above. The bird is able to rise above. The bird is able to have that power and that newness and that perspective to rise above and to get things done and to see things from a bigger overview and not get lost within the trees. Can't see the forest for the trees type feeling, right? But the bird frees us from that because it's able to fly up and get that bigger perspective, bigger picture, and all this other stuff. So the bull, obviously that Taurus type feel that we have with the stability, with the power, with that low, that low standing power, that ability to release that power and to have that stability that we need in our lives. The lion, again, represents that sort of that connection that we have with everything and that Leo presentational type feel that we have. So the World represents us having all of these abilities and the power within the batons to wield those abilities as well. So now we have a younger person that's nude. Again, the younger represents that fresh perspective. We don't have a really old perspective like in the Hermit. We have that fresh perspective that we have from the youth and all of the things that go along with the youth. And then human represents sort of that, again, that human power, that human representative that we have to able to look at things reasonably with higher logic and stuff like that. So the clouds, just like in all of the previous cards, represent that sort of that protection or that surrounding of the protection, and also the ability to connect with it. These are in the clouds, so they have a higher meaning. Anything that's in a cloud has a higher meaning. Obviously, a lion is not in a cloud, but that representation sees a higher meaning. This is not just a lion sitting on a plain in the middle of the jungle somewhere. This is a lion that has a higher meaning or a higher purpose, and that higher purpose, that presentational Leo type aspect we have here. All of these symbols are within clouds, and they all represent that higher purpose. And then we have the wreath, representing all the different sort of that wreath representing that the fact that we've been through it all, or we've done it all. So this is the end card of the majors, and this represents that we have done it all and we have ended it all, and we're able to get that total success, that all of that achievement that we have. And the wreath, obviously, all these little patterns within the wreath took forever to make, I'm sure, for whoever was sewing it or whoever was creating the wreath or whatever. So it represents that. And it's wrapped in red, which the wrapping sort of represents that stability. So the wreath is not going to fall apart. It's wrapped up tight, and it has that stability within that infinite abilities that we have. We have the stability within that, not only from Taurus, but from the wrapping of the wreath. So that is the end. Thank you for joining me. I want to thank my Patreon supporters: Alley Cat, Annie Lemaster, Carolyn Bouchard, Crystal McGinn, Gary Fink, Hot Chocolate, Janet Littler, Jessica Mante, Kim Wilson, KSW, La Ami, Richard Zeh, Scott Miller, Shantaro Kuga, Sinai Zamora, and Trina Iraverio. Thank you all for supporting me. If you would like to support me on Patreon, link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you the next episode where we start covering the minors.